This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by BitRefill. BitRefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Adi Kaur. His Twitter handle is @famandfire. He also runs travelxgroup.com. And Adi is the head of a family of three traveling the world. Been traveling for 2 years. They've done an insane number of flights with young children in tow. And so in this episode, we'll be talking a lot about what it's like to be nomadic with the family. That's what interests me. You know, I see that in my future. So I'm going to be kind of asking a lot about the mechanics of how that works. But yeah, man, Adi, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm glad I found you about 3.5 months ago. I think you're one of the when I started my X handle when it was Twitter 3.5 months ago. You were one of the first accounts I found, and I think I was at maybe 0 followers. So I was definitely motivated by what you were doing.
Well, I'm glad the algorithm popped us up, and you've been doing a good job on Twitter, man. I don't know, you like to get to over 2,000 followers in just your first couple of months is huge because that's the hardest part for sure.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's just connecting with the right people. Some of those people, like Nick O'Brien, um, at Nick Love Spain, I connected with him right away. So I know you've had him on the podcast.
Hmm.
Yeah, so just connecting with the right people. I think I jumped up to 500 followers in 2 weeks, and then just been going from there.
That's insane. That's crazy. Should be motivation to anyone listening to this that it's not that hard to get started. And once you get started, like you're good.
Yeah, you just build the momentum. I think the story, which is why I'm on the podcast, why we're chatting. I think the story inspires a lot of people, so
Hmm.
I'm excited to share it.
You know, your approach obviously resonated with people. I've been familiar with the FIRE movement for many years, financial independence, retire early, which I imagine was one of your early inspirations.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first started, even just prior to the Twitter account, I was just thinking about what I wanted my focus to be in terms of telling our story, and truthfully, after starting a family, getting married about 6 years ago, and then having a child 2 years ago, my life definitely shifted from being all about work and career to family, and then how do we have financial freedom and freedom to travel and enjoy the lifestyle that we have.
Hmm. How old are you now?
I'm 31.
Okay. So you got married at 25 ish, first kid at 29.
Exactly.
Just trying
Yeah.
to get the numbers right. Crazy that that's like an early start these days almost.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. All my friends were definitely calling me strange at the time, but uh, but no, it was perfect, man. It timed out perfectly for me and for my story with my wife. So I wouldn't change it any other. I wouldn't have it any other way.
And she is Latina, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we both grew up in New York City, but my wife, her background is she's half Dominican. Her mom immigrated to New York City when she was in her 20s. So my wife grew up in a Spanish speaking household in the Bronx, New York. So definitely a lot of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans there. Um, yeah, so she's Latina and then also half Italian, but she's much more identifies with the Dominican side.
Nice. That's a good combo.
Yeah, it's a very solid combo. The genetics are strong.
So bring me through, I guess, how you got interested in the fire movement or implementing fire techniques to pay off debt, and I guess just your hero's journey story and how you went from career guy to insane travel the world guy. And actually, before we do the hero's journey, tell us, like, just to build your authority a bit, you've done something like 50 plus flights in the past year with a 2 year old kid. Can you just walk me through that? Because it's mind blowing.
Yeah, so not quite 50. We'll probably get there before he's maybe 2.5. We've done at this point 32 flights, and he's 2 years and 3 months. So 32 flights. We started. He took his first flight when he was a month old. A couple flights in the U. A couple
No
flight.
way.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Sorry to
Uh,
interrupt. That's insane.
I love it. I love it, man. Yeah, he took his first major road trip at 3 weeks old. We were living in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time, and yeah, we took a road trip to San Diego and hung out at the beach, on Coronado Island and all of that. That was kind of our vacation spot from Arizona. So he did his first big road trip at 3 weeks, and then after that, we were flying in the States. We hit up Vail and Breckenridge with him at a month, and then we did Washington State and Mount Rainier, and then yeah, once he was 6 months, that's when we really just started like flight after flight. So he was up to 29 flights before 2 years old. And
Oh my God.
the truth is, I mean, listen, I'll say this. We took full advantage of flying with a baby under two because he was a lap child. So all those flights were free for him, which was huge. And we didn't pay for a single flight. Besides taxes and fees, we credit card hacked our way to 29 free flights as a family.
Hmm. I mean, do you know, is there like a FDA recommendation for how many flights a baby should take? Like, isn't there like a radiation issue or something?
All I'll say, when you go through airport security, you don't have to go through, I don't even know what they're called, but one of those like
Right. Scanner
radiation
machine.
monitors or whatever have you. So, but no, I don't think there are any regulations. And he did it, man. He's stronger and healthier than most kids his age, and I think part of that's from just travel and exposure to good food along the way.
He's gonna be like bench pressing at age 8 or something.
Yeah, man, why not? He'll be on he'll be on your podcast, before 5.
I'm down. I'm down. Hopefully, we can keep it going. And then, no, in all seriousness, though, is the health thing of the flights a concern at all? Like,
Not to us. We've never heard anything about it. And like I said, man, he's got no signs of slowing down. Um, and we would, these weren't like, hey, let's take a red eye here and then let's hop on a flight to there. It was more, let's fly somewhere, let's spend 3 weeks to a month, and then hop on another flight.
because don't like airline pilots like develop brain cancer or something from just so much time in the air or something? You know what I mean?
You're scaring me, man. But
Yes. Sorry. I mean, yeah, I'm probably doing my Latin life probably shouldn't be discouraging travel, but I mean, I don't know. I'm just wondering. I'm just asking in case there are things that you've learned along the way.
no, nothing in particular to that. But yeah, like I
Okay.
said, man, he's thriving, and he's great. He's changed on planes. So the first probably year or maybe like 10 months, he'd be napping most of the time. Now he's so used to it. He just walks up the aisle, especially when we get first onto the plane, and he's just fist bumping everyone. All the grandmas love him, and he has a good time, and he's excited for every flight.
Okay. So impressive. So if anyone's listening to this, obviously not too many families have done this or even thought it was possible to bring a 2 year old baby around the world 30 flights. So I think it's really cool to know it's possible, and we're going to dig more into the details of that. But I guess let's rewind the clock and let's do a little bit of the hero's journey before I just start asking too many questions about how to travel with the baby. But I'd love to hear about the hero's journey because I know you did some cool stuff around, paying off debt and like setting up your life in a particular way to make this lifestyle possible.
Yeah, so let's see how far back will I start? I mean, I did a lot of traveling in and through kind of my college days, and I did take a year off after my freshman year and traveled a lot of Europe. And just I think that was the motivation to say, all right, like I want to live abroad. It's just how do I make this sustainable for the long term? And again, this was, let's see, how many years ago would that have been? Maybe 11 years ago. Um, so, following a lot of your advice on X, I just didn't have it in my mind at that point to, just move abroad with a couple grand in my pocket and a laptop. So I don't think it was that popular 11 years ago to kind of make that move. So I was traveling and then thinking, all right, like I want to finish, I want to get my degree, but then how do I make this sustainable long term? And then I started working. I was 22, and I started working in kind of the corporate healthcare world, and I got involved in franchising. And I was doing that, but just kind of grinding away. At that point, I met my wife, and the real hero's journey, especially from like the fire standpoint, is when we met. We were, after finishing school and she finished her master's degree, we were $75,000 in debt. And we were, just getting married. So 25 at the time, 75 grand in debt, living in New York City. And it was unsustainable. It kind of made me panic. I was like, this is going nowhere fast. And I'll never be able to kind of live my dream of moving abroad if this continues. So we packed our bags, moved to Washington State, and we got work out there. And that was a whole nother journey, man. If you've got the time, I'll drop that story. But we lived off of the
Sure.
coast of Seattle. Do you know where Bainbridge Island is? Are you familiar with that area at all?
Not exactly, but I can kind of picture the islands near the border.
Yeah, yeah. So beautiful, beautiful place. It's about a ferry ride from Seattle. So we got work. We were living out there, and that's when I really started getting into like financial independence. It was like, all right, I'm 25. I've got 75. We've got 75K worth of debt. How are we going to pay this off ASAP? So we were earning pretty well, but the hero's journey took us to renting out and living in a studio apartment, living well below our means, and just saving every single month with the goal of paying down the 75K. And we ended up doing it. We ended up paying it off in 18 months, which was it was, I wouldn't say it was a struggle, but that was our focus. So we paid that off in 18 months. Still enjoyed. We had a Euro van. We were traveling all around the Pacific Northwest on the weekends. Just no expensive international travel during that time. And then once we paid that off, it was like, all right, we've got these habits in place. How do we, reach financial independence or close to it in the next couple of years, and then get abroad?
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. So 75K paid off, 18 months. You're in Washington State. You got a van. What's the next step?
Yeah, next step after that, once that hit zero, we were kind of investing along the way, but then we just like hyper focused on keeping those money habits alive, and saving as much as we possibly could every single month, moving forward to build that foundation to then be able to move abroad and reach a certain level of financial independence that gave us a lot of options. So we just continued to save. I think at that point we were saving about 70% of our income, so over one salary for sure.
Hmm.
And that just opened the door, man. Then our net worth and our ability to save and invest went from minus 75K to 100K, and then multiples of that, to the point where I think after 5 years we had saved and invested over 400K, and continue to do so, and are reaping those benefits. So we've got that foundation, and the cash flow to sustain our lifestyle and sustain our lifestyle abroad, and continue to build wealth.
Hmm. And what was your main career, I guess, before you started traveling?
Yeah. So by the once we left to travel 2 years ago, I was director of operations for one of the fastest growing health franchises in the states. So I was really in the corporate space. Um, yeah, helping franchises, healthcare franchises, working with franchisees of different types. So I don't want to throw out any company names out there, but within the healthcare franchising world, and my wife has always been in education. She started off as a school teacher in New York City, continued that,
Hmm.
and now she's on her way to becoming an administrator, principal, vice principal, internationally.
A, a vice principal internationally.
Yeah, so at international schools. Um,
Ah, okay.
yeah, there's a whole network of schools really all over the world, geared toward diplomats, and then even expat families that want to move abroad. We've come across a lot of these in South America, so that's her career path.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so you basically saved up over 400K from in-person jobs and just saving and investing.
Exactly. Yep. Just working together as a team, with the goal of having that foundation to go abroad. And the future is clearly online and different projects. So definitely hope to leverage the online world for future income.
That's awesome. I mean, so I guess the point was you wanted to get your income to a point where you could live off the dividends, the 4% rule, the 5% rule that FIRE espouses.
In a way, so we I would say, and then the backstory to going abroad is we always wanted to go abroad. And then this was, then COVID hit, and my son was born in 2021 in Arizona. So this was kind of that gap in time. So we yeah, at that point, this was when kind of inflation really started to grow and affect people's lives. And I made a post about this, but our rent in Arizona was nearly going to double at the time. So that was just motivation to, hey, we built this foundation. Let's live off of the cash flow that we have, that we've built, and let's go abroad. And we decided to take that sabbatical year and just travel. And we could talk a lot more about where we've been and what we've experienced, but that was the motivation behind it. It was like, prices are skyrocketing. I don't want to sign another lease. We have this,
Hmm.
we have our young son at home that we want to spend as much time as possible with. So let's take that year off to travel because we can.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think a lot of things changed, a couple of years ago, and so it was definitely pretty good timing, I would say. Was this something that you were already starting to work towards, or like if someone's listening to this, what steps would you say that they need to put in place before they make the move?
Before they make the move, I mean, you need a game plan to determine obviously where you want to go, but for how long. So this was our game plan was always, hey, we want to be abroad and live our family life abroad in different places and truly just live out our dreams of living in different places, having home bases in different places, having our freedom of time. So for us, it's very much long term. So we built that financial game plan to to do that. But if someone, let's say, wants to take a sabbatical or just have a year off with their family traveling, um, I think it's just understanding where you want to go, what the expenses are going to be, and having that, having those funds available to you. Um, we have cash flow coming in from investments that helped with like a great portion of what our expenses were abroad. But once you know the amount, I think it's a lot more attainable than most people think, especially if you're going to countries in Latin America, especially if you want to just experience life, um, the true culture of the experience, and not live like a tourist visiting for a week.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about cost of living. I know this is something you wanted to discuss, and you seem like a very numeric guy as well. So, and I guess we'll specifically focus on families and cost of living for families, because I think as a single guy, like a lot of people know what it costs to live as a single guy, and you can slum it more, or at least we kind of know what we're in for.
Right.
But once you're a family or like a unit, it's I feel like there's a lot of unknowns in terms of the cost of living.
Yeah, we definitely did not slum it around Central or South America. We were trying to have a great experience and a great experience together and for my son.
Right.
Uh,
No, obviously, I wasn't insinuating that. But if you're a single guy, like you
yeah,
could live in a hostel or something. But living in a hostel as a family would be a little weird. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
yeah. We've taken many trips in hostels and private rooms, but yeah, to live. Um, we didn't know exactly what to expect. And I'll say the backstory was, hey, let's start in Costa Rica and go from there. So my wife and I previously we've done travel in Central America. We've been to Costa Rica. We've been to Nicaragua. We did some short trips to Colombia. So we had an idea. And then being that kind of that numbers guy from a financial standpoint, I would leverage sites like Numbeo is one of them, and just blogs and stuff to get an idea of what things cost. And Airbnb was just a great resource at the time. I'm not a true Airbnb fanboy after using Airbnb for 2 years full time traveling. But it was just a great gauge of, hey, if we go to this area of Costa Rica for our first month, this is what rent will run us for. Normally, we were in like a pretty nice like 2 bedroom apartment, 1 bedroom if it was big enough and had like a nice big living room, but for the most part, like 2 bedroom apartments. And then we knew just from running our own finances that your rent, your living cost is essentially going to be your highest cost. And then transportation, we really didn't have to worry about from a car standpoint. Um, so we factored in some just for local traveling and buses and Ubers and taxis, and then food. Man, it was really just like where we stayed was our biggest expense, and then just food and some entertainment. So all of that factored in, and we can go into the details of each place. But all I'll say is that our cost of living was cut, man, probably down to a quarter of what it would have been in the States, especially with a young child.
Really. What do you think it would have been in the States with a young child?
Oh man, I think it totally depends, but one of our motivations for moving was just that hike in prices, inflation, and rent. So with the rent hike in Scottsdale, and Scottsdale was just booming at the time, everyone wanted to move down there. I think our total expenses to live pretty comfortably with daycare, especially if he was going to daycare and we were working, would be easily $6,000 a month, and most people will tell me that's low. Like, people I was working with and friends, they're clearing like 10K a month, without even, just like it's just normal for them to spend 10K a month.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, daycare is expensive, man. I think I just saw the national average was about 1350 a month for one child to go to daycare. So, when you factor all that in, we just wanted to be with our son and give him a different experience. Plus, learn a new language. Just, I mean, I can go on, but I'll let you guide the conversation.
No, keep going, man.
I'll I'll just continue riffing on a topic that very few people know about, or think about. So yeah, so cost of living, just always wanting to reach financial independence and have that time freedom, I think was motivation for us to look for something different and kind of just jump into the unknown of going abroad. So yeah, all of that factored in. And then I think for us, just once you have a child, if we're just thinking about his health, his experience, the type of food he'd be exposed to, my wife being from a Dominican background, we wanted to make sure that we kept that alive so that he would be fluent in Spanish and speaking Spanish on a regular basis. um, so all of those things factored into just going abroad, and now he's 2 years and 3 months, and he's clearly a Spanish speaker. He understands everything I say in English. We do one language, one parent. So my wife only speaks to him in Spanish. I only speak to him in English. But he's clearly a fluent Spanish speaker.
That's awesome. I heard that that's the right approach, the one language per parent thing.
Yeah, yeah. In all my research, that seems to be like the most sensible approach to making it happen, and to just be consistent. So yeah, he's done that throughout our travels. He also had the help of his abuela, speaks to him in Spanish, so that all helps. And now and then for everyone listening, I mean, right now we're in Asia, we're in Hong Kong, so he's learning his third language, and it's pretty interesting to observe.
Yeah, we'll have to get to talking about Hong Kong and Asia at some point, but I guess we'll keep going a bit more linearly. Um, so, cost of living. So, it would have been over 6K in the US. And what do you think you got it down to?
Oh yeah, easily over 6K, and that's with we had one car, but if you factor in like rent, eating good, healthy, quality, organic or as close to organic as possible, which was important to us, and your living expense, and then we just like to take mini trips and do some traveling. 6K is I think close to that kind of minimum amount. Oh man, when we were traveling, especially without a car and insurance and all those payments, we were, depending where, we were at 1,500. I would say would be the average. Maybe about like 2,000 would truly be the average if you factored in everywhere we've been.
Hmm.
Some places more expensive, like Costa Rica, and we were talking about this a little bit on X. But everyone knows Costa Rica is more expensive than Colombia, and you know everywhere is more expensive than Argentina. So if you factor in everywhere we've been, it's I'd say 1,500 to 2,000, and for a really nice quality of life.
Some people might find that low or crazy. They might just be like, what? Like traveling as a family all over the world, less than $2,000 a month?
Yeah, man, I can show you I can show you all the statements. Um,
You'd have to be very good at getting a good deal on Airbnb or your rent then? Because that's the biggest factor. Because food, like food, one person versus three people, it's not going to be like a huge jump. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, um, so it's really, I guess, the airfare, which you said is mostly covered with points. And then, so to me, it seems like rent, and especially like I said, you kind of have to stay somewhere reasonably nice with like maybe more than
Yeah,
one
and we
bedroom.
were in
Maybe, I
great
mean, I guess not
neighborhoods
necessarily,
overall. You know,
but
it's
like, yeah, what do you
we
do? Do you
weren't
have any
choosing
good
the
hacks
first.
for
You know, you kind of have to
for getting a
master,
good deal on
especially if you're
rent?
going
Because
with
I guess
Airbnbs,
on a budget of two
the
thousand dollars a
filters. You
month
know, it wasn't
or
like, all
fifteen hundred
right,
dollars a month,
you know, these are
you
our
got to be
only
spending
options, and let's
like
choose the one
twelve
that
hundred
costs,
max on
three
rent.
or four grand a month. So we were definitely filtering through Airbnbs. I've got kind of my methodology for doing that effectively. And I would say our rent
Lose you again?
abroad would range from, again, totally
Goddamn.
dependent where, but there were some places where we rented for 700 total costs on Airbnb, and some places where it was, 13, 1400, but always in the best neighborhoods in town, places where we felt really, really, safe overall, but not just safe, it was just a great quality of life.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of BitRefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about BitRefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
Totally depends on the market and the time you're visiting a specific area. But hacks overall, um, normally I'm on Airbnb, so probably a month to 2 months before we know where we're gonna go. And again, I'll just say the background. Like, you don't have to have this master plan of, hey, I'm gonna spend, X amount of days or X amount of months here and then go somewhere else. For the most part, our journey was like, we picked a place that we knew we wanted to go. And then after being there for a week, connecting with some locals, making some local friends, you just find out where another great spot to be in is, and getting a local perspective, right? Instead of like reading a travel blog, which commonly, some of these people haven't even visited the areas, or they're there for 2 days and they come up with a whole write up. So we're just kind of connecting with locals and doing our research, and then we determine the next spot we want to go. So after a week of being somewhere, then I'll hop on Airbnb, research the next spot, see what's available, and then just do my research from there and say, okay, great. What one bedrooms are running for the most part, from 600 to 900, and two bedrooms are running, from 900 to 1200. And then, yeah, just do our research, read all of the reviews, make sure that these are reputable hosts, and these aren't brand new units that are just going up for rent with no reviews. And once we find something that works, we book it. And if we want to stay longer, oftentimes we've done this about 3 times. We'll just connect with the owner of the property and see if they'll allow us to do, an even longer extended stay
Off
at it.
Airbnb.
Yeah, off of Airbnb. And we have not been told no. It was just, yeah, it was just, hey, is this available for, another month? Especially if you're doing long term. And a lot of our hosts were totally open to it. So that was a big money saver.
Okay, so it sounds like just booking a month or two in advance probably does save a lot of money because there's a lot more supply available. and you have time to maybe, I don't know if you ask for special offers as well, but you kind of have time to do the special offer negotiation because that takes a couple days as well.
Yeah, so for the most part, because I also wanted to just enjoy wherever we were and not stress out about, are we getting a like a spectacular deal in the next spot? By filtering through Airbnb and finding a couple of choices, I would just make sure that clearly they were available for a month or longer stay on Airbnb. So
Mm-hmm.
that itself provides a major discount if you're booking for a week, if you're booking for a month versus if you're booking for a week in terms of the daily rate. So that would drop it down substantially. And then from there, once we connected with the owner, we would take it offline and talk, especially if we really liked the place and my son liked the place and we liked the location. Then it was like, hey, is this open for another month or another 6 weeks? And yeah, we did that in Argentina. We did that in Buenos Aires. We did that also in Costa Rica. So it worked out really well.
Okay, cool. And do you try to like give them a hint, be like, "Hey, man, you might want to, block your calendar for the following month," that type of thing, because otherwise it'll get booked up if it's like a
Yeah,
sick place.
yeah. Especially if we connect, and especially if we get the vibe. We don't, part of it is wanting to like know the area and the neighborhood and not be like locked in for 3 months or 2.5 months in a place where I'm like, man,
Right.
I really wish we were, a block closer to the beach or right on the water over like, having to walk a quarter mile to the beach. So I would just connect with the owner. It certainly helps that my Spanish is definitely at an advanced level, but my wife is very much a fluent speaker, so she would be a great connect with people,
Mhm.
and then we would just feel it out and go from there.
Got it. Got it. So monthly rentals far in advance, do a little negotiation. But even still, how are you getting such good prices? Because Airbnb is just not that cheap these days. Obviously, I know it depends where you go. Um, but yeah, it's almost like very difficult to find a decent place on Airbnb less than $1,000 a month.
Yeah, I think it just maybe it was the timing of when we were doing a lot of this too. And again, our expenses have changed where we currently are, and in Asia. But man, if you do it, if you're just strategic with the Airbnb, like for example, we were in our first stop in Colombia was a common stop for most people coming from the States, but we were in Medellin and we were in El Poblado, um, and we didn't know about other areas, and we just chose that particular area because it was where a lot of kind of expats are, and we knew that it was a
Mhm.
safe area, somewhere we wanted to explore. So we were renting a really large. I'd consider it a 2 bedroom. It was like a really large 1 bedroom, with another kind of side room. So it was perfect for us. We had access to kind of a garden lawn area, and we spent, I think it was 875 for a month there, and it was
Yeah,
great,
Medellin's
man.
pretty good. Colombia's pretty cheap.
Yeah, and we could have, and then if we wanted to stay longer there, it would have been substantially cheaper. Like from there, I mean, I'm sure like Guatape,
Mhm.
right, which is a common kind of like day trip, like tourist destination along the reservoir there from Medellin. We um we we loved it out there, and we wanted just kind of like a rural Colombian, kind of farm experience for a month, and we rented a great spot out there, and I think that only cost us, it was definitely sub 700, probably 650 all in Airbnb costs. So, it's just you go somewhere and then you adjust, and every market's a little bit different.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other thoughts on cost of living? And I could almost be a whole topic in and of itself, but like, what are some of the other things where you save big living abroad versus in the US? So, daycare is probably substantially cheaper. Obviously, rent is
Totally.
substantially cheaper. What else? Like, what do people maybe not realize makes life so much cheaper?
Yeah, I think we have a unique perspective because we were focused on personal finance and financial independence in the States too. So I would gauge, and then this is something that I'm currently helping families with as well, just kind of build that financial foundation and financial future. Um, but it really comes down to your living expenses, which would be rent or what you're paying for your mortgage, your transportation, which is huge. So I'll go into that, and then food costs, and then clearly when you have a child, daycare, because daycare is super expensive in the U.S. But transportation wise, like we had a Jeep. We loved kind of off roading and camping. We had a Jeep. We had insurance. Once we sold our car, I mean, there's easily let's see, what would that expense be? I mean, that's easily $600 a month when you factor in all the costs. That's gone. Then when you have food as well, man, we were let's say in Costa Rica, walking to the market, buying all fresh grown organic food. If we were in Argentina, we were eating steaks 3 times a week, 4 times a week, or going out to eat. And I would say our food bill was easily cut in half across the board. And we don't that's something we won't I don't want to say we don't have a budget for, but man, food is everything to our family, especially really super healthy, high quality food for my son and for us. So, but food costs easily were cut in half, and if you factor in daycare, I mean, we saved $1,500 a month. I think daycare would have cost $1,500 a month to drop my son off and be in daycare all day. So that was a major expense we didn't have, even though we did put him in guarderia for when we were in Costa Rica and different places for a couple hours a day. And when we were in Spain on the Canary Islands, he was in daycare, not full time, but full time would have cost us $500 a month compared to $1,500 a month.
Hmm. What about health insurance for the family?
Yeah, great question. So traveling health insurance is, I mean, it's clearly substantially cheaper than health insurance in the States. We had a health plan, like a traveling health plan for all three of us, which we did have to use um, twice with my son, but we got really phenomenal care in Costa Rica and in Ecuador. And that was covered with our kind of international traveling health insurance. And I believe we were using Safety Wing. I'd have to ask my
Hmm.
wife exactly which one, but yeah, I think Safety Wing was the one that we had decided on.
Okay, so are you using Safety Wing, a family plan for Safety Wing, as well as layering something else on top of that, or
Well, from our own financial standpoint, we have an HSA, like a health savings account,
right?
that we were using, and just in case. And with the cost of living, I mean, with the cost of healthcare abroad, we were very, very easily covered with everything. And just for, I'm sure most of the listeners know, the cost of high quality healthcare when you're abroad, and in Latin America, is a fraction of the cost of what it is in the States. And to give an example, we flew back to visit family. My mom was having a kind of big birthday bash, with the entire family coming in. So we were in California, and my son needed a quick trip to like an urgent care, and it was for what ended up being a scratch. They didn't do anything to truly help, and we were billed, I think, $350 for 5 minutes of no care, just for someone to look at my son and the scratch, compared to, I mean, it. I don't even know if we would have been charged abroad, and if so, it would have been just like pennies compared to that.
Yeah, I mean, 350 bucks, you kind of got off easy in the U.S. healthcare system.
Yeah, literally, this was like we walked in, had to wait for half an hour, and then we were out, within 60 seconds of seeing anyone. But yeah, so we spent probably what it would have come out to, maybe $2,000 an hour for the amount of care that we got.
Hmm. So, what would your advice be to a nomadic family? Like, should they just get by on safety wing? Like, let's just say maybe they're not American or just don't want to do the HSA. Um, is it just safety wing, or is it safety wing plus something else, or how does it work?
So because we had the HSA, I didn't like go into a ton of depth. I knew we were good in terms of especially where we would be in the cost of healthcare. But I would say safety wing, or there's some other options out there for traveling and kind of nomad insurance, and just make sure to do your research. And if there are any kind of fears for healthcare, and getting coverage, just do your research and get the most thorough plan that's out there. And even the most thorough plans are a fraction of what healthcare costs if you were to pay out of pocket in the States. I'm not sure what it is in Canada, or even if you do pay for private health insurance, but the costs aren't substantial, that's for sure.
But so when you say HSA, it's basically like a tax-free savings to pay out of pocket. Like you're basically saying that healthcare is so cheap internationally, might as well just pay out of pocket.
Yeah, depending where you are. I mean, that was our case. We knew that we had tens of thousands of dollars, for care if needed, and just based on our experience, and then also, like I said, looking at the numbers, of what healthcare costs abroad, especially where we would be, we knew it was going to be really, really affordable. So thankfully, no major health scares. Like I said, my son is super healthy. That's probably, the result of really great, great, great food. We could talk about breastfeeding as well, which I think culturally is very different abroad and in Latin America compared to being in the States or in Canada. So he's been healthy, and knock on wood, that continues. And I think a lot of it's factored in because of our lifestyle.
Hmm. And did you really like take a look at it, or you just kind of been like kind of procrastinating? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like in the future you would get a more comprehensive healthcare plan of some kind? Or because I've looked at it and it's not that expensive for families, like maybe 100 bucks a month, maybe a bit more, but the deductible is kind of high. It almost seems like it doesn't do anything. I mean, it protects your downside for like really big things, I guess. Um,
Yeah, it was the protection side of it that was most important to us, and just knowing if something large or catastrophic happened, there was coverage there. So I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what we paid, but I think per person it might have been $79 a month, close to that range. So again, to protect the downside, that was valuable for us. And then in the future, if needed, our situation's a little bit different now, and now we're in Asia. We're in a location. My wife is working abroad and has coverage for us, and we still have months and months of travel, every year with our son and all of his school breaks. So it's a little bit. It's I would say it's certainly different now, but into the future, if we take a year off because we want to and travel, we will. We'll make sure that that's completely covered. But I definitely recommend for people to do their own research. And if anyone has any questions or they reach out to me on X, I'll do a deeper dive into it.
hmm. Okay. Safety wing could be cool as a family. I didn't even because I always considered it like a for individuals. I didn't even think of safety wing as a family thing, but I guess they probably do it, right?
Yeah, they do, and we just had coverage for all three of us. I don't remember if it was like a family plan. I don't think it was, but it was
Just
cover.
everyone individually.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
just coverage for us individually. And man, when it's so, I would say, inexpensive, it wasn't even kind of a factor. It was like, okay, yeah, we just pay for safety wing on a monthly basis, and it's there for us if we need it.
Mm, okay, cool. Cool. So that kind of brings us to, I guess that kind of wraps up maybe like a cost of living discussion. Maybe we can get into just some logistics of traveling as a family. I did have a couple questions. This is a bit in the weeds, but it's got to be asked because, but like, what do you do about breastfeeding and stuff like that when you're traveling? Because I imagine you're not storing the baby bottles or whatever, so it's like I don't even know. I don't even know. Like,
I, I do nothing in terms of breastfeeding. um,
I mean, was that ever like a family concern though, or
we're if you can take one thing from this conversation, we're practical and clearly, like, like you said, just like number minded and financially minded, but we're also very go with the flow. So we're not planning, a year in advance or breastfeeding a year from now. We got down to Latin America, and my wife. It's just culturally, like, it's much more kind of appreciated and normal in Latin families, and down in South America, breastfeeding is just kind of a normal process of raising a young child. So my wife continued that tradition, if you will, and continues it to this day. Um, and we just, we factor it in. So it was just very normal. My
like
son.
some families are so intense about it. Like you gotta buy the rig with like the extractors. I forget what it's called. You got to get all this fancy stuff.
Oh, no fancy stuff here. All I'll say is we rely on nature, and it's worked in our favor. We're not traveling around with rigs or pumps or anything.
What about like diapers and traveling? And I guess every time you get off a plane, like like diapers are big. Like you can't really travel with too much of that, right? So I guess every time you get off a plane, you got to hit the pharmacy or whatever, get like a 24
Yeah.
pack or whatever.
I love it, man. We're definitely in the weeds. We I mean, in South America, really anywhere, it's just, you hop into your local supermarket or the farmacia, and you pick up, we would just pick up diapers where and when we needed them. And when you're traveling, you just we'd have as many as we needed for the trip or the travel, or what would get us through a couple of days of getting somewhere. And then I think diapers are universal no matter where you go.
Yeah, I suppose.
That's
I
not true,
suppose.
but they're universally found in wherever we were. I'm sure in other countries it's not can't just hop into the pharmacy, but it was super easy, man.
Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America. And Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information.
Anywhere we went, we would find them.
Any must have baby gear that you travel with that you were like, wow, this was actually like a good purchase or like something you can't live without?
Oh, for me as the dad, a just a great baby pack slash hiking pack. So I'm one of those dads. My son grew up. Some of our photos on X too, you'll see it. We had two packs. One was when he was small enough. It was like a I've got to find the link on Amazon, but it was like a dad pack where it looked like I was wearing an army vest, like where I can kind of pack guns on the side of it. Um, but it was a baby pack meant for dads, and it was super super rugged and outdoors oriented. So that was awesome. And then as he's gotten older, I have a great Osprey backpack that I can throw him in, and we can go outside, go for hikes and things like that. And
Mm.
you need a good foldable. We call it a coche in our house, but a stroller of some kind for
Mm.
longer excursions.
So you
And for
travel with the stroller.
Yeah, it folds up really efficiently.
They let you
So,
bring that on the plane?
oh yeah, and it's free. It's free to bring on the plane, so no
That's
problems there.
cool. That's
And
sick.
yeah, one of the perks of traveling with a baby, no matter what airline is, and no matter what our seats were, we board early. So
Hmm.
I'll say that was a major perk.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, dude, send me a link to these backpack things. Like, I want to see what it looks like. So you have like when the baby's younger, you have a front pack thing, and
Hmm.
then when it gets a bit older, or I guess just for a different use case of traveling, you have like a backpack thing to do hikes.
Yeah, exactly. The front pack, I would say, by the time he got to maybe a year, or just over a year, it was just he was getting a little too heavy for it. And then now we've got the Osprey backpack, which I've been using for well over a year, and that's just, hey, let's go outside. I'll throw him in. And now my son's a bit older, man. This kid, he's riding a scooter around, and he's quite a bit independent. And I'll just say, things changed. We were in a part of traveling, and hopefully for you, if you want to, be a dad in the future, anyone that's listening, you kind of never, especially if you're around, if you're not at work, missing all the moments, if you're around for the moments, they're unforgettable. So, watching my son crawl for the first time in Costa Rica, like on the beach, never forget it. Watching him he was walking at 9.5 months, which is quite early. He started walking in Medellin, like I remember the exact location, like in El Poblado, where he took his first steps. So you just you don't forget where you are. I kind of have the dual memories of where we were and where we were traveling to, and all the things that he's done along the way.
That is kind of crazy. Like, be like, I wonder if this is the country where he starts walking.
Yeah, dude, absolutely, man. I was like in Costa Rica in our third month there, and this was the third place we stayed there. I was like, he's gonna start walking in a couple of days, and he was holding on to things. And then our first stop in Colombia was Medellin, and yeah, I can show up if there's a really kind of large centro like a mall, centro comercial in El
Mhm.
Poblado, and they had a huge open space for kids, and that's where it all started, man. First steps.
Mm. Yeah, the Colombian malls always have like a little McDonald's play place type thing.
Dude, this mall, I'm forgetting the exact name of the mall. um it was We walked in there, and again, we were coming from Costa Rica, and Costa Rica is amazing for a certain experience. I'm definitely into nature, definitely being into the outdoors, and but depending where you are in Costa Rica, it could be quite adventurous from a nature standpoint. And I would say the infrastructure, for the most part, can use some work there. And then we got to Medellin and to this mall, and we were just shocked, man. And the malls are so different in Latin America, especially Colombia, compared
Hmm.
to the U.S. You walk in there, and it's like almost being in a mini city, right? Everything was just unreal. And it wasn't a play area; it was like a football field worth of kids running around and activities for families.
Yeah, malls are definitely popping in Latin America still, not ghost towns.
Yeah, yeah, the complete opposite. If anything, it's like the center of town.
Trying to think what else. I know these are like random detailed questions, but they're hard to. There's like nowhere else you're going to hear this on a podcast or even written down. So breastfeeding with the strollers. Here's a question I had. Strollers obviously work very well in suburban US where everything's flat, but in Latin America where the sidewalks are cracked and have gigantic holes in them all the time, like is a stroller even useful, or are you just going to have them in like a backpack thing or like a sling the whole time?
Oh man, it depends where you are, right? Like when we lived in Argentina in multiple locations for 4 months, and a stroller was great. You're just, I could have him in a pack or just use a stroller and get around the neighborhood in Argentina and do it no problem. Colombia depended where. Like I said, we lived in Guatapé for a month's time. So, the roads needed some work there, and there are definitely some hills. So that was kind of a pack experience mostly for us. And then, but it really depends on the infrastructure of everywhere. So I'm glad we always kind of have both options for us.
Okay, so if it's not too hilly, it works. But like, yeah, if you're in like a hilly, cracked sidewalk place, is a stroller even a thing? Or you got to get like a off
Totally.
duty off road intense stroller with like big wheels.
Yeah, we for a long time we were using kind of like it would be like a running stroller, like with those larger wheels that you'd see like marathon runners or parents running long
Mhm.
distances with their
Like
kids.
bike wheels.
Exactly. Yeah. So like mini bike wheels, and that always worked fine.
Okay, so so if you're a LATAM family, get the intense stroller with the bike wheels.
Yeah, that can fold up. Make sure it can fold up, because if you need it and you need to take an Uber somewhere, which we've done countless times, probably 1,000
Mm,
times, it's got to fold up to throw in the back of whoever comes to pick you up.
okay, fold in the back. Okay, cool. So the pack, what's like I guess it's a random, but what's the longest hike you've ever done with the kid? Like, do they do well if it's over an hour?
Yeah, I mean, my son loves it, so he'll be in the pack, and then I'll let him out, and he'll be able to walk for a bit. Then we'll go pack again. So I would say the longest hike I've done with him specifically would be 5 hours in
Jeez.
total time. Not something I do, all too often. But yeah, we get out. He gets out. He
Sounds
loves
like
exploring.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think at some point it was just like, man, I can't just like, I want to enjoy the hike too. I don't want to carry you on my back for 5 hours on a 50 degree incline.
Okay, so the pack, the stroller, the breastfeeding. What about just the fact of like all these new Airbnbs and environments and stuff with the kid? Like maybe they don't respond well to the fabric of the sheets or the blanket or whatever. Do you try to do things to make it to like instill some familiarity in new places, or like have they ever had like a nervous breakdown to like a new spot that or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all incredible questions. No, he's just adapted to every location we've been. From going from spending a month like on a beach in Costa Rica where literally we were in the sand every day, to let's say being in a different climate, or being in Quito in Ecuador, where our experience outside was mostly, hey, you got to put on a long sleeve, and we're playing in the grass. We're no longer in the sand. So I think he's just adapted, and is excited everywhere new that we go, even if it's for like a mini trip. We stayed over in, it wasn't an Airbnb, but it was in a hotel just this past weekend when we were exploring a an island beach out here, and man, we go somewhere new, and he's just excited to open up the drawers and check it out and feel out the bed and see if it's a bed worth jumping on or not, and he just adapts. So I think that's a matter of just being super fortunate, but then also at the same time, it's he's been exposed to so much, so I think that's what he knows.
Very cool. Any questions I'm not asking about the kids thing? Because I just don't know what to ask as much because I'm not in that situation yet. But it's like it's happening. It's gonna happen soon. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to prepare myself as well.
About
What
the
tips would
kid,
you have? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Okay, so thinking about tips, it's just being adaptable. Clearly, when you have a child, your life changes, your schedule changes, and I would say that the first couple months, just at least from our experience, being in one place, as long as you're home and have the time to be with the child, I think that's the absolute most important part of that experience for us. And then once he's a little bit older, and especially once we got used to his patterns, um, and sleep schedule and things, then it was a lot easier to make moves and to go different places. But being home for, I would say, the first couple months easily, and then after that, it's making sure that you pack everything he would need for a destination. From, like, if you're going to the beach, make sure you pack his beach gear, because again, it's a lot easier to just order on Amazon if you're in the States, or hop into a store, than to find exactly what you need in a small Colombian village. So making sure you have everything that you need, and things just in case. Like, we always had some medication if needed when we were traveling, or things like that. But that's really it, man. I would say you might have to do an interview with my wife to get all the details of exactly exactly what's needed, because she's a good Latin mama.
Yeah, should be like Eddie has no idea what's going on. Here's the real deal. Like, no, I'm sure it's fine. I think the big takeaway I'm getting from this discussion is that it's not a big of a deal as it seems, and just be adaptable and go with the flow.
Yeah, yeah. I think there are limitations that a lot of people and society just kind of put on raising a family, and we're clearly doing something unique. So no one really, I didn't have a podcast to listen to on someone that was really doing this. So hopefully this helps anyone and motivates you and other people to just kind of get it done and go with the flow, and realize that it's clearly possible. So yeah, you just have to do it. And once you do the research of, all right, this is what it's going to cost, and this is the area that we want to be in this particular city, then I think a lot of it just kind of takes care of itself.
Definitely makes sense. Have you had any scares or like any aha moments that we haven't? I guess scares and aha moments are different, but have you had any aha moments that we haven't mentioned yet? I just want to make sure we kind of covered everything because this is huge, man. This is like a whole new generation of something. Like I feel like the first generation of nomads was more single guys or girls finding themselves, or also retirees as well. But people always said like, "Oh, I got to wait till the kids are, empty nest type of thing," or
Right.
we gotta slow down when we have the kids. Um, a lot of nomads just like base up somewhere, buy a car, and that's the end of it. Um, so it's like this is like a whole new thing, and I think we're going to see more of it. And you're one of the first people I've seen like really doing this. I know there's like a couple guys on Instagram. Um, you probably know them or have like seen, but there's really not too many of this like nomad family genre uh, yet, and so I'm just super impressed by what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's I would say that there are families that I've seen that, they do more of like a van life type of experience, or but they're still mostly in a country, or they're in the US.
Mm.
Whereas, being abroad and country hopping, um, like you said, they're like, and I've spoken to multiple people, because people are reaching out to me on a regular basis. It's like, yeah, I've been a nomad for 5 years. I'm expecting my first child. We're looking for that one home base, and that's their experience. But I think what's different about us is now, we kind of we have a home base, but we'll live in dozens of countries in the next couple of years. And even every winter break or summer break with my son, we plan on traveling to many countries for months at a time. So yeah, if I can inspire the next generation of families to do something different, that's a major win.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I noticed your Twitter, like you're promoting Travel X Group, which I guess is a group for other content creators, travel content creators. So it's almost like you're kind of hitting two different angles where you're building a community maybe for content creators, but then also I feel like the real main thing is the community for international families, traveling families. And I feel like not everyone's going to be as aggressively nomadic as you and I are, but families in general are just by definition going to be much more international than they have been in the past, where, you know, um, the two parents might be from different countries or different backgrounds, and there's just more of like a more international flair than back in the day, you know.
Totally agree. Yeah, and I'll say we're recording this interview kind of in a unique time in my ex journey, if you will. But like I said, I really only started telling the story about three and a half months ago. So I've connected with some great people. Nick O'Brien, who you've had on the podcast, great buddy, and we've created a community really just for travel creators on X to help them grow and just expose different people. So that's still on my bio, but individually, and like I told you before we started our recording, I'm going to release my first newsletter this coming week, and I'm really geared toward helping families really build a financial game plan, because I think that was absolutely huge for us. We wouldn't have been able to pull off what we're pulling off if we were still in 75K worth of student debt, or had $25,000 in bad credit card debt or anything like that. So the financial side is huge, and then also building that community of parents that want to be abroad and raise their family in a unique way. So you caught me in kind of a transitioning period, but Travel X is great for creators. It's a fun project that I have going on with Nick, and but soon the my personal focus is going to be on the international living side of it, and helping families out.
Oh, cool! I didn't know Nick was working with you on that one.
Yeah, yeah, it's a blast, and hopefully people tune into to Nick's recording of your podcast, because that was a great one.
Indeed. Cool, man. Well, let's get to wrapping up. I guess we already kind of got started with the shout outs, but take this time to direct the audience to wherever you want to direct their attention.
Yeah, so first I'll say, man, you just really have to go for it. Like if a family has a dream of spending a ton of quality time together, living a less expensive but really higher quality of life together, or having your child learn 2, 3 languages and have that be the norm, then you just have to really go for it. Start with one place, and then figure it out from there. And like I said, I'm here to help anyone listening. If you have a family, if you want to start a family, or even if you just have questions about where to go abroad from our experience, send me a DM on X. Give me a follow. When the newsletter comes out, I'll have a link for that in the bio. Sign up for the newsletter, and let's make your, it's kind of cliche, but make your dreams come true abroad. It definitely happened for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All the links will be in the show notes. By the way, just for future reference, are you chilling in Asia for good? You coming back to Latin America? What's good with that?
Oh yeah, man, we have to record a whole separate podcast on Asia. I'll be a regular guest on your spaces. Shout out to your spaces.
I got to get them going. They're still buggy. They're still buggy, but
Thanks, man. I'll give the rundown. We're in Asia for now, and like I said, my wife has her career in international schools, so my son started school, and but we'll do easily winter breaks and summers in Spain, and then Latin America as well. But we'll be all over the map, so just follow along.
no, cool. It's just good to know because I'm trying to make a mental map of all the like gringo dads in Latin America, basically.
I'm here, man. If I'll be president of that group.
Sweet, sweet. Looking forward to it. Well, Adi, thank you so much for your time, man. This was really cool to hear about. I know I have so many more questions, like private school, internationally, a million other things. So we'll have to have you back on the podcast or run some spaces and find ways to collaborate together in the future.
Thanks, man. This is a great time. My son just walked in the room, so I'll catch you later, Vance.
Cheers. Have a good one.
Cheers.